Hello, and welcome to the Ending Body Burnout Show. We are your hosts, Chris and Philly, co-founders of a multi-award-winning functional medicine practice, serving busy people with energy, mood, and gut issues.
While busyness, addictive doing, people-pleasing, and perfectionism might be the norm, it's not normal, and it's a major contributor to health issues.
Our goal with this show is to give you a holistic root cause approach to healing your body so that you don't have to continue doctor or diet hopping or popping a gazillion supplements hoping something might stick.
So get ready to heal your body, get your spark back, deeply connect with yourself, and step into the life of your dreams.
Let's dive in.
Hello, it is Philly here. Welcome to the podcast. We have another client story today for you. These are by far my most favorite episodes. It's not only really special having a client coming on to honestly, vulnerably share their healing journey, but also it's really sacred. And after we finished record at the end of this podcast, Joe and I had a little chat afterwards, and we were talking about how being able to voice and share one's personal story, especially when there's been patterns in the past, like there was for Jo, where she was silenced, where she didn't feel heard or seen, where it wasn't safe to voice her opinions, and where there was a deeper root cause belief of being unlovable. So therefore, there always had to be a mask on and people-pleasing and rescuing patterns and that sort of thing happening. So it's a big full circle, I feel like, for Jo and for many of our clients who share their story, where it is they have created enough safety within themselves and in our space and have really rewired and reprogrammed at a deep level the beliefs that they have about themselves so that it is safe to be able to share their story, and there is that self-trust and that self-confidence. So this is a theme that you'll hear in this episode today, and we'll also dig into how Jo overcome some pretty debilitating anxiety that had been building up over the past 10 or so years, but COVID was the last straw on the camel's back, and a breakdown of a relationship. And then she had a pattern where she would be able to put on a mask, put on her shield, soldier forward, be the warrior mum. But before reaching out to us, the pressure cooker got so big that it had burst, and her system was just stuck in this chronic state of fight or flight. And there was no amount of positive thoughts or techniques that she could use to bring herself back to calm and to self-regulate. So we really dig into how she overcame pretty severe anxiety. We touch on her gut health journey as well, and how she's now connected the brain and the gut, or the body and the mind, together to be able to create safety, alignment, and to find flow in herself and in her life again. So I'm really excited for you to be able to share this beautiful story of Jo's. These real life stories do metabolize trauma, so it's a healing experience for Jo and for other people to share their story, but also it's healing for you too. I call these real life healing stories evidence collecting. So it's evidence that healing is possible. And as you listen to Jo, I would encourage you to put yourself into her shoes as well, and know that there is a little spark inside of you, desperately wanting to get your attention, knowing that you are enough and that you are so worthy and deserving of being well. So before we dive into today's episode, just a reminder that we have, so this past week has been launch week for our Ending Body Burnout Method. So our doors have been open for the past week. And last week we also had an incredible time sharing our method freely, for free, in our Unravel Perfectionism and Body Burnout live free coaching week. And as part of our live free coaching week, we do have one last webinar tonight at 7 p.m. Sydney, Australia time. I do realize that it's a public holiday today. So hopefully you can come. Maybe actually it makes it easier to attend live. And this webinar is all about the 5 breakthroughs to overcome your healing blocks. So Chris and I, over our 25 plus combined years of working in the health industry, have identified 5 main reasons why people either stay stuck in their health issues and don't take that next step to really deeply and thoroughly heal, or the 5 main reasons why you might be trying some things, but you're feeling blocked and you're not actually getting the healing results that you think you should be getting. So tonight's going to be really awesome. We're going to take you through those 5 blocks and coach you through how to break through them. If you have attended any of our free events, or if you're a client or a past client, you'll know that when we're with you live, we want to actually help you to either break through a block, get a really deep insight, or even have a mini or a big transformation. So that is what you can expect when you jump on live with us, and we will actually coach you in real time. It's also a great way of experiencing how we work with our clients as well. And if our Ending Body Burnout Method resonates, especially if you really resonate with Jo's story today and the process that we took her through to heal anxiety, psychosomatic symptoms, and ongoing patterns of people pleasing and not being able to share her voice, then you have 2 days, depending on when you're listening to this. So our doors do close to the Ending Body Burnout Method on Tuesday the 28th, 9 p.m. Sydney, Australia time. So if you are listening to that this episode before then, check out the show notes and you can press the link to join the program. It'll take you straight to our Ending Body Burnout Method page and you can sign up there. Also in the show notes will be a sign up link to come along to our free coaching webinar tonight as well, where we're going to break through blocks to healing. So hopefully you can make it tonight. And if your heart has been singing and you're being pulled to joining our Ending Body Burnout Method and working with Chris one-on-one, our Ending Body Burnout Method is not a course, and it's also not just group coaching. We have 2 options of working inside the program and with us. There is a more VIP, high-ticket private one-on-one where you're getting regularly weekly root cause coaching, monthly treatment reviews. The TRTP trauma therapy is included in that one as well, and Jo talks about that and her experience in the episode today. If that's out of a budget, then we do have our semi-private option, which is still inclusive of one-on-one support. So we do have weekly group coaching workshops in that, which are all recorded. So if you can't or don't want to jump on live, you can catch up on those in the online portal. Plus, you're still meeting with me one-on-one every month to go over body system treatment protocols and also root cause coaching. And you also have unlimited access to Chris and I in a one-on-one container as well. So this is where you can email through any blocks that you have happening, if you have any questions, if you're struggling with anything, if you're working through any part of our program and you want to get our feedback from a coaching point of view or a practitioner point of view, you have us in your corner 24/7. I mean, obviously I'm not going to reply to you at midnight, but essentially you get a lot of one-on-one support. So this is personalized healing, and we're really proud of what we've created. And we've also created this at a really affordable price for the amount of one-on-one support that you do receive. So please jump in if you're feeling called. Take that courage to take the next step, which Jo and I talk about at the end of the podcast as well. So without any further announcements, let's jump into today's episode. Welcome to the podcast, everybody. I am so excited and my heart is so happy to have one of our beautiful clients who graduated from the Ending Body Burnout Method a while ago, the lovely Jo, here to come and share her story, which really is an incredible story. And Jo, I feel like you've just done the work at a really deep soul level and integrated and embodied so much, and you've received the results. So I'm really excited for everyone to hear your story.
Oh, thank you, Philly. Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited to be here and to have the opportunity to share it. So thank you.
Awesome. Yay. Okay. Let's start off with getting some backstory around past health, wellness, mental health issues, and when your body started first showing signs of body burnout. You happy to go back into the past?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I think as long as I can remember, I have always suffered with gut issues, even as a little girl. And most of that would have been bloating and constipation. I had skin allergies as well, so dry, itchy skin, a little bit of vertigo as well. But that sort of came off out a few years later. When I'm divorced, so I actually was divorced 10 years ago. And whilst, the majority of that time and my time in my marriage was happy, it actually was quite stressful. And there was a lot of mental health issues that developed from that. And I found that when I was going through certain areas of that or progressing through that whole period, depression came into my, I had depression into my little repertoire. My gut issues really flared up again. The constipation was quite severe, and the bloating was quite severe. But because I'd had that most of my life, Billy, I just thought it was my gut. Yeah. And that's just what it was. And obviously someone who is, has children and going through divorce can be quite stressful. So, a little bit of depression, I'm sure, was, warranted and valid. So that's what I told myself, that it was all normal and it was okay and I didn't know any different.
I was going to say, which is a super common story that people tell themselves, and probably just culturally society as well, that it's like, we're supposed to have pain. It's normal. Yeah. Everyone has symptoms pop up from time to time. You hear that a lot with PMS and perimenopause as well. Like, it's normal to have pain. It's normal to feel a bit crazy. It's normal to have hot flushes, when it's like, no, actually, these are just signs that something like your body actually feels like there's danger.
Yeah. Yeah. And once I unpacked all of that, I could see that at the time, it was just normal, I suppose I'm a people pleaser. So for me, being there for my ex-husband when he needed me, I just put a lot of what I needed aside because I didn't feel I was important. I thought that his journey was more important than my journey. And so I would be like, yeah, that's okay. I'll sort myself out later. Let's just get him all sorted and everything will be fine. And then that, I suppose, just became the story for my life, that, what I was going through didn't matter and it wasn't as important as somebody else's journey.
Yeah.
And so I sort of went through that, having to adjust to being a single mum. I had 2 children to look after. So I had one gorgeous boy who's almost 25. So he's on his way now. He's creating this awesome life for himself. But my daughter at the time was only 5. So I needed to step up and be there for her. At that time as well, I suppose, grabbed my Wonder Woman shield and just kept going forward, and I didn't allow anybody in. I just felt I needed to get on with life. I didn't want to show them, that mum was falling apart. They'd already lost this huge part of their life and their whole life was not the same anymore. So I had to pick up that shield and just keep moving forward. And so because of that, I didn't show a lot of vulnerability, Philly. I kept a lot of stuff together. I felt like I was together, but deep down in my body, it had a different story. And I just marched forward. I kept going. I survived. I got myself another job. I moved away from home. I bought myself a house. So I did all the things that on paper were great. And I felt really proud that I had achieved those things and I could do those things. And I also at that time did a lot of work on myself, Philly. I knew that there was something deeper. And with my ex-husband's mental health issues, in order for me to help him and to take his pain away and to make life easier for him, I actually went and studied, some mental health stuff. And I was a counsellor for Lifeline. And I remember actually the moment when I was in a class and I saw we were talking about abuse cycles, and I realised that I was in a mental and an emotional abusive relationship, and that was really hard, to actually just stop and look at that, because I was there to get information for him. And I was looking at all of these things and I was thinking, okay, there's all these things that we'll be able to do together and there's all this wonderful available information. But I never stopped to look at my journey. And there was a very clear moment when I was reading it and I thought, that's me. I can see the cycles. I looked at the cycles. I could see the cycles. And that was very confronting to actually see that is your life, that was my life. And from that moment on, I was like, okay, I need to start looking at this a bit further. And so I went and just did a lot of stuff for me on the side. I looked sort of started, that's when I suppose my metaphysical journey started with the brains and the thoughts and patterns and behavior patterns and things. So so I had that introduction maybe 10 years ago.
You were already converted to the fact that the body and mind are connected.
Exactly.
So then so life continued, and maybe we'll talk about COVID time, because I feel like if we're going along the timeline, COVID, as it was for many people, was a very stressful time for a lot of people. Are you happy to share what was going on for you? And was this kind of part of the thing that, I don't want to use the term the last straw that broke the camel's back, but almost like this stuff that had been simmering beneath the surface for a long time and the chronic stress? Like, was this a big part of then when things kind of blew up for you?
Yeah. Again, at the time, I didn't realize the impact that particular time had affected me. I didn't realize the effect that it had on my body, probably until maybe 12 months after, when I was in another relationship and that broke down. And then once that broke down, I realized that particular part in the middle, that COVID part, played a huge role in me losing myself, Philly, losing that part of me that had always, I'd always been quite close or connected to my intuition or my gut. You know, when you get those little messages that say, hey, don't go that way. And you're like, okay, and I'll do this. So I've always been able to land on my feet. And I have a girlfriend who's just like, has quite often said to me, I'm amazed that everything falls into place for you. And even though it's tough at the time, it always does. And looking back, I could always see that I was always guided. And that was the big thing, I think, that I lost. I lost that connection to myself. But so during COVID, as I said, I had just purchased my own home. So in 2020, at the end of 2019, I'd purchased my own home. And my daughter and I were ready to move into that. I was in a relationship, for a couple of years, and life was really good. I worked in the travel industry. So COVID came around in March, and we were just, hey, just take a bit of time off. There's this funny, crazy thing going around, but we should be good. We should be good.
2 weeks. I thought it was going to be 2 weeks and the world would go back to normal.
It was like, look, you know what? Just take a month. We've got a month. Within a month, everything should be back to normal. So, no worries, all good. As I said, I had this new little part of my life I was looking forward to, so it was great. And then, of course, as we know, that 12 months ended, 4 weeks ended up being a lot longer.
Mm.
I was lucky at the time because they had the job keeper, I think it was at that time.
Yeah.
So I was still had income coming in to pay for my mortgage and support my child and buy things. And so it was okay. But it was every quarter it became less and less and less. So I had actually also studied another area, and when the payments became quite less, I thought, oh my gosh, I need to get another income. So I actually went back into the role that I had previously, which was in a government department. And I was like, okay, yep, all good. This is great. I'm fine. I actually made the decision to leave my travel job because I felt that at that stage, this other job would be more secure than the travel industry, because it was still so up and down, Philly. And that, again, was a huge job because that had been a huge part of my life, a huge decision. So it had been a big part of my life. And again, off I went quite merrily, all good. And then I received a notification that in order to keep my job, I actually had to be vaccinated. And my children are all vaccinated. I have no problem with vaccinations. I'm, as far as I know, fully vaccinated. But there was just something about that particular one that, again, my gut kind of went, oh, you know what? Let's just hold out on that one. So I did. And a lot of people were sort of worried and concerned about it. But I was like, that's okay. I've decided for myself that I'm not going to take that option. That's all good. As it unfolded, I pretty much had to take that particular vaccination. I received emails to say that if I didn't, I would be investigated for misconduct. It was
crazy.
It was crazy, Philly.
Yeah. Even that word is very, very intense, misconduct. And it's like, I'm actually a good human being. I'm just listening to my intuition.
Exactly. I was like, what am I doing? I'm just making a choice for me. I'm not saying it's bad for anybody else, but for me, it's not where I want to go.
Yeah.
And I was okay with that, but the rest of the world wasn't.
Yeah.
And so I actually contacted my doctor because I could tell that I started to feel a little bit of anxiety. And I'd had anxiety before, but I didn't really have it to this degree. So I was a little bit like, oh my gosh, what am I feeling here?
Yeah.
And I spoke to her, and because of what I felt that if I had followed that suit and followed what someone was telling me what to do, there was a part of me, Philly, that thought, well, why did I get divorced? Why did I go through all that healing and that progress and, make all those decisions that were so hard to make, but I made them because I knew they were the best thing for myself and my family. And suddenly here I am told that I have to do something in order to be right or to fit in or to be the good girl.
Yeah.
And that made me, I knew that I needed to reach out and get a little bit of extra help at that time because I knew I couldn't go through that on my own. And it was bringing up stuff from the past, from my marriage, my divorce, the mental and the emotional abuse that I had suffered. So I did reach out, and I had one session with a psychologist who told me that I needed to reassess everything. That the choice that I was making was probably not the best one.
Wow.
And I knew then straight away that I was on my own.
Wow.
I thought, I
huge.
cannot talk to anybody about this. I'm reaching out and I'm being bullied, and I just felt like I didn't have a choice. And in that moment, for me, I just again felt that I was unimportant, that I didn't have a voice, that I was to be silenced. And again, we can unpack all that with with your beautiful program. I realized why I felt that way, but that's how I felt. And that was
We'll get
huge.
to that part in a seckie.
Yeah. But I felt so alone. And I thought, I'm on this journey on my own. And again, I had to pick up that sword and that shield and just walk forward and not tell anybody my story because I was not technically allowed to. I wasn't allowed to have those thoughts or opinions or voice my concerns. I couldn't talk to anybody about it. Actually, I was very lucky because I did have a beautiful, supportive family. And my partner at the time, he was very supportive of my decision too, which was great.
Yeah. Yeah.
But in a sense of work or anything else, it was really hard.
It was an intense time. I know so many people will resonate with this because I remember during that time, and I said to you before we have catched up today that I'm like, oh, I think I've got like this podcast that I want to share around my experience with COVID. So I won't go into it in great detail, but in clinic, there were a lot of clients coming with this same story. They're like, I don't know what to do and I'm going to lose my job if I don't. So, of course, everyone had a choice, but there was a lot of pressure to make a choice.
Yeah.
And there was some big consequences to not make the choice. And if you were in a workplace where you couldn't actually offload any of that, like that, as you're telling that story, I'm like, yeah, I mean, I had my own trauma around that. But it was very different to yours. Like I had a lot of people that I could talk about because there were a lot of clients and my husband and actually not my extended family. There was a lot of pressure from them that it's like, you have to get the vaccine. Otherwise you're going to kill your father.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was an intense period. And I feel like if anyone's listening and they're like, yeah, it was an intense period for me and they haven't unpacked and processed that time in their life, it's still in the body. Like the body still remembers.
Absolutely, Philly. It was huge. And like I had previously, so I live 2 hours away from my ex-husband. So every fortnight I drive down to Sydney, and that has been my routine for the last 8-9 years. Suddenly I had to have a copy of a letter or something in case I got pulled over on the side of the road to find out why I was driving to Sydney, which was just to take my daughter to see her dad. So everything changed. It was a huge time. And as you said, I didn't realize the trauma from that was inside my body until later. So I found myself, there were a couple of other people in this in my workplace who were sitting on the fence, and two of us sort of stuck to our guns and just went no. We were asked to leave the premises. We had to just pack up and go. It was horrific.
Crazy.
And I came home, and I sat there and I thought, what am I going to do? I have a child. I have a mortgage. I have no income as of now. I can't talk to anybody about this. It's huge. It's not just me making a decision that was keeping information from myself, from my family about my marriage and what was going on in my marriage. This is the world. Like it wasn't just between my ex-husband and I and my children. It was the whole world.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how do I even go about moving forward from this? I don't even know what tomorrow's going to look like.
Yeah.
But again, there's a little voice inside of me that said, hey, why don't you reach out to your, buddies in the travel industry and see how we go?
Yeah.
And I did. And hey, you know what? That's perfect. Have 3 weeks off and come back in January. So I had my job. I was able to move back into my job that I had loved and had that really hard decision on making to leave. So that was all good, fine and well.
Yeah.
The next 12 months from that was really, well, not 12 months, so I suppose the next couple of months from that, because it all happened around Christmas time. Like I couldn't go in and buy my daughter Christmas presents because I didn't have a green tick. I couldn't take her to the movies because I didn't have a green tick. I had to then try and tell her that it was going to be okay, that because she's seeing all this stuff. Like, at schools, they would have all this information that was like, well, you need to do this because you need to look after grandma and grandpa and mum and dad. And so I was fighting against all of that as well, or trying to create a safe space for her to say, hey, it's okay. It's going to be okay. And I didn't get my daughter vaccinated either. So she then had issues within herself, or like for her school friends. So a lot of her school friends were. But she I could see that what I had to do for their Philly was to walk my path, and she would see that the path we were walking on was going to be okay.
Yeah.
It was going to be okay.
Yeah.
So
okay.
it's huge.
So then, oh gee, when did you was it, I don't even, what's the year? It's 2025.
I know, crazy.
I
I
think
know.
you reached out to us, was it 2020,
It
maybe
was,
like mid or end 2023? So
yes.
can you take us to the point? Because you mentioned also there was a relationship breakdown.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, like how you were feeling, what prompted you to reach out to us to get some help?
Yeah. Okay. So once I got everything sorted in order, there were a few things that were happening within my current relationship. And
Mm-hmm.
again, that tied back to being told to do something when there was just a lot of stuff that came in from my past history. I could see patterns, and I was aware of these patterns now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what? Okay, I've gone through a fair bit of stuff, and suddenly these patterns are coming back again, and I don't like where they're heading. So I I chose to end that relationship, and that was fine. And then it was almost like my body. So a week after I made that decision, I was at home. It was Christmas again. So it was almost 12 months to the day.
Mm-hmm.
And I was at my mum and dad's place getting ready to put the Christmas tree up. And my sister-in-law was there with her little nieces and all my nieces and I just had a panic attack. I thought I was having a heart attack. So this was about a week after I made that decision to sort of end that relationship. And I said to my mum, I don't feel well. And I got this huge pain in my chest, down my arm. I couldn't breathe. My heart just was racing 100 miles an hour. And I seriously really thought I was having a heart attack.
Wow.
I've never experienced anything like it before. And I said to Mum, I think you really need to call the ambulance because I don't feel well. So the ambulance came. And then, of course, trauma raised itself again because that was one of my worst fears in that time previously, because I'd heard of people not being treated at hospitals because they didn't have a certain vaccination. And I'm in this ambulance thinking, what's going to happen to me? They're taking me to a hospital. Am I going to have this thing to be treated? Am I going to be not treated? Am I going to have a heart attack in the middle? Because that's the information that was around. That's what I was led to believe. So that added an extra level of trauma and stress to my body. Thank goodness I had the most amazing doctor at the hospital. The ambulance people were brilliant. They were there within 5 minutes. As I said, I went straight into the hospital. I was treated with amazing care in a public hospital. And I had the most amazing doctor who sat me through, and she did all these tests. And she just said, I think it's a panic attack. What's been going on for you? And then that was it. I was just able to talk to this person.
Yeah.
But even then, Philly, I still went, it's okay. I'll find a way. And
Put
I
the
did.
shield back on, Superwoman.
Picked it back up again.
And this time the body's like, no
well,
more.
almost,
Almost.
Philly, almost. So then 2 weeks after that, I was having lunch with another girlfriend, and I had another mild panic attack. I could feel it coming on. Then at the end of January, my uncle was diagnosed with a brain tumor.
Oh, wow.
And I was with my mum and my dad and my auntie sitting at my auntie's house. We'd just gone to visit him, and I could feel another panic attack coming on. And this time my heart didn't stop racing for hours, and hours and hours. And I got home and I realized that was the point. I called my brother and I burst into tears, and I was like, what if we lose my dad? Because my dad had just sort of been diagnosed with the early onset dementia, and that was it. And I thought, there's another loss. There's another person I'm going to lose, it was just so traumatic. And from that, I couldn't come down, Philly. All the other things I could kind of come down. I could breathe into them. I could settle them, and it didn't. And that's when I was like, I need some help. I don't know what's going on here. I had actually read your book, and I had followed all of your stuff probably for about 3 months beforehand. So I knew you. I think I'd done a few free, a few of your online courses and stuff. So I just automatically thought, I'm going to reach out. So I did.
Mm,
Yeah, but that
mm,
was the point where I just knew in my body something was very different, because I couldn't even look at that shield. I just
yeah,
went, you know what, I'm done. I don't know what's
yeah,
going on, and I don't know how to do this anymore.
yeah. Um, this is for the listeners, but and we've talked about this when we were working together as well, that over time, like distressing events, traumas, stressors, and that could be environmental stuff. It could be stresses happening in the body, but over time, it just like this pressure cooker builds up. And, you know, if the pressure cooker is small and it's not too intense, then you usually are able to pick up that shield again, continue
Yeah.
moving forward, or, you know, you might have some strategies, techniques to bring you back to calm. But at some point, for a lot of people, that pressure cooker gets to a point where you just get stuck in this chronic state of fight or flight. And like physically, mentally, emotionally, it is really hard, if not impossible, to self-regulate. And so essentially that's what was happening in your body. And you had a lot of like psychosomatic type symptoms showing up too. It wasn't just the anxiety or panic attacks, but I think from memory there was like the fuzziness, the fuzzy in the head, the eyes, the ringing in the
Yeah.
ears, the dizziness.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this mind that wouldn't stop chattering to you.
And that's exactly what it was. So yeah, it was that monkey mind that yeah, it just wouldn't stop. And yeah, the fuzzy eyes and the vertigo came back. And so
Mm,
a lot of it was in my head, essentially. Like, that's where I felt it. Like, I didn't have
yeah.
pains in my body or anything, but I had it,
Mm,
my gut and my head. It was
mm,
just the overwhelm. Yeah. And I think I remember saying to you when I called you, I was like, I know what I have to do.
mm.
And I'm not, it's like my body wants to, but there was no connection between here and there.
Yes.
I'm like,
Yes.
I just,
Yeah.
I know, I feel like, behavior, this is where I need to go. But I
Yeah.
couldn't. And I didn't understand that part. And that was the first part where I don't like, well, that's new for me. I don't know. I don't know what that is and
Yeah.
why that's happening to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, in our ending body burnout method, the first step generally with most clients is getting answers on what's happening at a physical level, first of all. So, what's happening in the body systems. And that's where we run some lab tests and we look at things that go beyond what GPs, medical specialists test for as well, which is really nice because a lot of the time, now, yes, it was anxiety, and the doctor that you spoke to was right in, you know, voicing that and like saying that this is what's going on. But even then, that's still not enough to really be like, okay, cool. But now what? Like, how do I address this? So
Yeah.
we dug into some body systems with you in order to like one, look at the gut stuff, because that had been an ongoing thing since when you were a little girl. But also, was there anything else going on that was perpetuating, contributing to this anxiety and you're not being able to self-regulate and bring yourself back into calm? So do you remember what showed up on the lab test and how you felt when those markers came back?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it was low serotonin and low cortisol, or high cortisol and
Yeah.
low dopamine. So all of those beautiful hormones that regulate you
Yeah.
and ground you and provide safety and joy. And yeah,
We're just
they
like not happy.
no, they weren't. And although that was the case,
Mm,
even just having that diagnosis, Philly, brought me relief, because, as I said, I had been through huge things in the past. I'd
mm,
always managed to get myself together. I'd always managed to find a way. And this way, I physically couldn't even think of how that was even going to happen, and I knew why. I knew that it wasn't just something that I could change a thought about, because
yeah.
I literally couldn't, because that part of my brain was like, you know what? We're just worried about, we're focusing on getting up in the morning and running away from that Tyrannosaurus Rex or whatever it is that's after you,
Mm,
that's still there. And you don't need to worry about anything else. You just need to keep running. And
yeah.
that's how I felt.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, it's not one or the other. It's not mind or the body. It's actually like, let's look at them together as a whole,
Yeah.
because you can't separate the two. You can't just work on thought patterns, if there's real physiological imbalances, I mean, you can, but it makes it harder to heal. And
Yeah.
then vice versa. If you just took some supplements, but you're not working on the deeper traumas and the deeper beliefs that we'll get into in a secchi, then at some point you'll outsup the root cause. Did I say that right? You can't outsup the root cause. So
Yeah.
it's like, let's look at you as a whole. You also, there was methane overgrowth as well, which I thought was an interesting connection because you'd had this long-term constipation presentation. So for those who are listening, there's bacteria in the gut that produces methane, and it actually slows down bowel motion. So it often does show up when there's been a long history of constipation. And it's interesting, you were saying before, it's like, oh yeah, like it was all showing up here in my head and my gut. It's like the gut and the brain are
Yeah.
connected. There's this beautiful vagus nerve that connects both of them. So if there's an issue upstairs, there's going to be an issue downstairs, and vice versa most of the time.
Yeah. And I'd actually, sorry to interrupt, Philly, but
It's okay.
part of, so I took an interest in the vagus nerve. And when I looked at that, I was like, oh, yeah, okay.
It all makes sense.
It all makes sense. Another piece of the puzzle just kind of, went down. Yeah.
So along the journey, started supporting those body systems, but then we also went deep into what we call the deepest root cause. So why have the body systems burnt out in the first place, even going beyond just looking at the stressors that you'd had along the way that, we could see. So really it's like what was happening internally that had led to this point. Are you happy to talk about this, like your work through Spark? So Spark is what we call our metaphysical side of healing. And the first journey really is to identify the deepest root cause belief that you have about yourself at an identity level, because essentially these identity-based beliefs are the machine that drives everything. So it's creating your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions. It's how you perceive yourself and your existence in the world. Are you happy to talk a bit about your journey to get there and what that looked like, how it felt?
Yeah. I think I looked at the exercise about 4 times before I really actually did it, because I knew that once I went down that road, it was going to open a lot of can of worms for me. But I knew I was also ready, and I knew that the only way I was going to overcome what had been happening and whatever story I had believed was to uncover that story. But I also knew that it was the safest place for me to do it in this group, because I knew that I was very supported, which was what helped me through. So my story pretty much is that I believed I was unlovable. I was
that
unlovable.
was quite shocking for you too, wasn't it? Because it's like
Yeah.
I had like a lovely upbringing. My parents were lovely.
Yeah. I didn't feel unloved, as in a sense that I didn't wake up and go, no one loves me. What am I doing here? So it was a little bit of a, how did I feel that way? Why did I feel that way? And being unlovable, I discovered as well, Philly, there's a lot of it's like an umbrella. So there's lots of other little beliefs that kind of fit under that, which I sort of discovered. It's sort of not just one thing, maybe I felt ugly, so I was unlovable. Therefore, no one would love me. I wasn't important. I didn't matter, so no one loved me. So, and they're the little things that I broke down along. I worked out along the journey that there were just these little things that, or sayings, or stories, or moments that happened in my life when that little person in me took what was being said and made a story out of it and believed that. So,
Are you happy to share the ugly duckling story? Because I think that's like a real tangible, like it doesn't, these things don't usually happen with the big stuff. It's usually the small things that as a little human being, your brain is like, who am I? What does that mean? What just happened? What does that mean about me? Like we're egocentric. So we're making all these little stories and beliefs about ourselves. And I think your ugly duckling story encapsulates that perfectly. It was
Yeah.
a little thing, but for that little human, it was big. And it also was causing adult issues.
It was. It was. So, yes. So my mum, um, God love her, the most amazing, beautiful mum, and I love her to bitsies. But I do remember at the time when I was little, I was the middle child, and I
So
had
was
this.
I. I know how
Yeah,
you felt.
and I had my sister, who I love, with everything. It was gorgeous, big, long legs, dark hair, smart, funny, beautiful. And my brother was blonde and, gorgeous and cheeky and lovable. And I was red-haired, freckled kid in the 1980s who would get bullied within an inch of a life. If you had red hair, it
So
was not
mean.
good.
Kids are mean.
They're so mean, Philly. And I remember something must have happened. And I remember coming home this day and I was upset, and my mum was talking to me. And I suppose at that age, I can't even tell you how old it was, maybe 5, 6. So she decided to tell me the story of the ugly duckling. With the intention that the ugly duckling grows into this beautiful, amazing swan and is gorgeous and finds her place in the world. But as this little girl who felt ugly, all I heard was that the little duckling was ugly and no one wanted him. So he went to the geese and no, he didn't belong there. And then he went to the chickens and he didn't belong there. And so he just walked along this little path with his head down, not being wanted. And that's what I held on to. I didn't hear anything past
But
that.
she transforms into a beautiful swan.
Exactly. And she finds her people and all. Yeah, no.
It's just like, I'm just the ugly duckling
I just
and
basically,
nobody wants me.
I don't belong anywhere. I was the
Mm.
middle child. I wasn't smart. I wasn't a boy because my brother was, after 2 children, my mum and dad wanted a little boy. They got so where did I fit into all of this? And I didn't realize that journey until I did all of this work, Philly. And as I said, at the time, I just felt like that the bullies were bullying me.
Yeah.
And I wasn't jealous.
Sorry. Keep going. Yeah.
No, I was just going to say, and I wasn't envious of my brother or my sister, there was none of that, but I just couldn't. Yeah.
It's just
So
this internal dialogue. Can you share how you connected that to your present day experience as an adult, like with relationships, even this COVID time, the anxiety?
yeah. So
like how did that show up as a pattern? So the belief will show up as a pattern.
Yeah. Well, can I break it down? Like as I said, like there's that umbrella of not feeling lovable. And I do remember that I think I conquered that belief of being ugly at a point in my divorce, in my marriage, like just before that, because my ex-husband said something to me that I will share with you because I think it's very poignant. But he in one of his darkest moments, he said, if you can look at yourself in the mirror and like what you see, there's something very wrong with you.
Wow.
And I knew in an instant, though, Philly, I had done the work that I was talking about that I'd done before. And it was like one of those sliding door moments where I thought, I have believed that my whole life, from whenever I heard that story, that I was ugly and that I was no one. And but in an instant, I knew that belief wasn't true anymore. So I kind of, from that day on, look at myself in the mirror and say, I'm more than beautiful. And that was fine.
Awesome.
But in this time, again, it came up in feelings of not being heard, not being spoken, being listened to, not being able to voice my concerns, not being able to share what I'm really feeling, not being able to share my emotions. No one loves me enough for me to be able to express myself. And again, I grew up in an era where we didn't show our emotions, like in a family where if we were happy, that was great, but no one knew how to share those deep stark emotions, so sadness, the joy, sadness or resentment or fear or guilt or shame, and a lot of those emotions came up for me in this journey.
Yeah.
And
It's
I
like
was
the
the good
pressure
girl who
cooker.
had to follow suit, and please everybody, and I wasn't. I was going against the world, and that's what was sitting in there.
Yeah. And so if you had that deep core belief that, so the ugly one you'd recognize, you'd reprogram that one was good, but then the deeper one around, I don't matter, I'm invisible, I can't have
I'm
a
not
voice, I'm
important.
unlovable. It's like, then it makes sense that COVID and like a relationship breakdown would make it feel very unsafe to be you in your body.
Yeah, I'm not a priority. I don't matter. Yeah, I'm not important. My story's not important. Everybody else is. So I just felt like I was that ugly duckling again, walking away around in the world where she didn't belong anywhere. Yeah.
So good. Thank you so much for sharing all of this. I know so many people will be like, oh my gosh, she's speaking about me. So what did it look like for you to be able to rewire, reprogram the beliefs and get mind and body connected again and returning back to self and building your safety net up within yourself, essentially?
Well, it was hard work, but it was so rewarding, And I knew that my body and my mind were connected. And that's the thing I think I knew all along. And even though there were days where, the canteen became my daughter's best friend. I was like, here's money to go and buy something at the canteen, because I physically couldn't go to the shops and prepare food for her like I used to, Philly. And so I knew that that's not what I wanted, and I was more than that. I just knew that, and I knew I had to do the work. And I also knew that there was also that little spark inside of me. There was still something there that I had to believe in. And so I just trusted, first of all, you guys. I trusted the process that was in the program, because I had nothing else to do, like to try. Everyone else had abandoned me, had left me, I couldn't rely on, I couldn't trust them. But this was this little safe place that I could just really open up. And I knew I had to do that. I knew I had to keep that sword and that shield down, because as soon as I pick it up, I knew I'd find an excuse, or I'd find I'd talk myself out of something, or it'd be okay. And that was the biggest thing for me. I knew that I had to be vulnerable with myself. I had to just, trust something again, to build a trust with myself. And that was trusting the program. And some days I did like it, some days I didn't like it, but I did what was required of me. Some days really well, some days I just do one or two little things, and that was it. And that was enough. And I had to tell myself that whatever I was doing was enough, because it was more than yesterday. And that's,
I think that's such a good lesson as well, because if you're fighting against yourself, feeling like you haven't done enough or you haven't done a good enough job, whether it's like a rewiring practice or a journaling question, or whatever it is, then you're fighting against yourself, and so therefore you cannot heal. But the moment that you're like, you know what, I just give myself permission to do what I can, and like even if it's a tiny bit, it is enough. And you got results, I would say, pretty quickly. I don't know if it felt quickly to you. I would say, like, by the end of the 6-month journey inside the Ending Body Burnout Method, can you share like where you're at that point and how you were feeling and the changes that you'd experienced in yourself?
Oh, I was a different person, Philly. The 21-day program in the metaphysical stuff was where everything shifted for me. Because that is the stuff where you put into practice. Like my anchor, even now.
Safety anchor.
My safety anchor. Like, and that's the thing as well, Philly. Like I still, all of that stuff doesn't just go away. It's a part of me now, but I don't fight it anymore. I just go, that's my journey. And if those moments or that anxiety or that little bit of fear comes in, I just use my anchor and I trust that I'm going to be okay. And and that was from the 21-day you know, process,
Rewire. Yeah.
the rewiring process. And yeah, so that I think is when, for me, I knew I could tell things were shifting. I could really, and I allowed my body to release emotions. I wasn't allowed to release emotions when I was younger because my dad, again, love him to pieces, but he would, you know, his favorite saying was, I think, you know, if you keep crying, I'll give you something to cry about.
Yeah. Most
So,
kids heard that.
which most kids, so for me, I was like, well, I'll be punished if I feel sad. So I never allowed myself to really feel those deep emotions. So I just had to go, you know what? You're not keeping this in anymore. We're releasing it. We're letting it go. There were days where I would just cry for no reason at all. And rather than say, oh, don't be silly, I'd be like, good job. Get it out. You're crying. You haven't cried for 25 years.
Yeah.
You're crying. Let those tears flow. And even that was really hard to reprogram. But I did it just a little bit at a time, just a little, just tiny, tiny little baby steps, but just believing that I believed in something more than what I had.
And the nervous system will fight back if things happen too fast. So like those little tiny baby steps, it's like, you know what, I feel a little bit of emotion today and tomorrow I feel a little bit more. I feel like that's the best way to move forward if there's this big block where it's just like, it's not safe to be different.
Yeah. And I think also, Philly, for me, what I realized was, again, going back to that mind and body connection, that I'll sometimes even now go for a walk and just tear up. And I know that it's my body just releasing stuff, and it's okay. I don't have to have a sad thought to cry, or I don't have to think myself into crying. I just let my body do what it needs to do because it's just saying, hey, I just need to cry.
Wow.
It's talking
That's
to
awesome.
me now, not my brain telling me that I have to be this certain person or whatever, that I'm just, so that's,
Yeah.
So that's
so
really
cool. And we went a bit deeper as well. So at the end of the 6 months, you're like, oh, I think there's still like a little bit that kind of needs like snipping off. So we decided to do the TRTP trauma therapy together, which is what some of our clients inside the program does, either like inside the Ending Body Burnout Method or after. What was the thing that made you feel like, oh, I think I need some deeper healing here? And what was your experience and your results of 2 weeks of clearing some deep-seated and hidden trauma from the body?
Well, the TRP, I think I read about it in your book. So it was always something that I was curious about. And I quite like to delve into different modalities and look for anything that's going to help me to be a better person or a better version of myself. So I read that sort of earlier on in the piece, but I just kind of put it at the back of my mind. And I didn't know how it would fit into my healing at that stage.
Yeah.
And at that stage, I didn't want to just look for the easy road out. I knew that in order for me to really heal, I would have had to do the work. And I didn't know if that was just like another, like an easy road. I've got this journey and I can take the shortcut or the detour that's going to help me get to where I need to get to. So I kept it in the back of my mind, thinking maybe. Once I did all of the work and realized how far I had come, I just knew again that it was something that you were going to be able to help me tap into the things that I couldn't control because it was in my subconscious. So there was there was these, like I'm carrying lifetimes of trauma, Philly, like there's trauma in my body, in my body that comes from my grandmother and her life.
Yeah.
And so I knew I wanted to kind of reach any part of that story.
Yeah. Any other blind spots, any other shadows? Let's go in.
The things that I couldn't see because I knew that they would still be there.
Yeah.
And if they weren't great, but if they were, I knew that they'd be addressed.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. Yeah. It was really
it took you to look. I never do TRTP with someone until they've worked through Spark or at least the first part of it because I feel like there is some responsibility pieces that need to happen and some deep digging into who you are and who you want to be. And I also know when someone's going to get great results with TRTP because you've already had phenomenal transformation. So I'm like, when you were like, oh, I think I might do it, I'm like, Joe, you'll just go for another quantum leap. It's going to be
Yeah.
awesome. You're going to get great results. I promise.
Yeah. Yeah. And I did. And it was
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So cool. Okay. 2 more questions.
Yeah.
So what was different about our ending body burnout method? Because you, like, along your story, you said you tried a lot and you've done a lot of things, and like things in the past had worked for you as well. What do you feel like was different with our program?
I really think for me, Philly, it was the safety. I really felt that you guys had my back. It was a place at that time where I could be completely vulnerable and open and share my story with you. And there was no judgment whatsoever, where prior to that, I was judged all the time, or felt like I was. So I could be honest and open. And just the information that you had was brilliant. Like as I said, I'd listened to some of the podcasts before and I'd read your book, and I just knew that I felt that you knew your stuff and that you were going to be able to help me in all different areas of my life. So it wasn't just fixing, helping me to think a positive thought. It was, you were able to help me in those areas that I didn't know how to help myself with. So I had to trust somebody else. And for me, it was that trust. And I felt immediately safe with you and Chris, and the place that you provide on that with the program, and just even the one-on-one chats that we would have. They were, it was amazing. It was amazing because I just felt like you always had my back no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah. Safety and trust, I think, go hand in hand. You can't have safety when there's lack of trust.
No.
And also vice versa. So yeah, thank you. That's awesome. Okay. If for those who have been listening, especially those who might be feeling stuck in a cycle of body burnout, maybe they've tried a bunch of stuff, they might be losing hope that maybe this is just their lot in life. What are some words of wisdom you can share with them?
Probably just not to give up on yourself. You don't have to know what to do or how to do it, but just know that there's that little spark in you. There's that little part of you that knows that there's something more. And you don't have to know what that is. But if you're listening to this podcast, or, you've read Philly's book, or you've seen the post on Facebook and it piques your interest, then that's your body saying, hey, get this, give this a go. This is going to help you. Or there's more there. There is someone out there that's going to catch you when you fall. So yeah, just try, give things a go, just you won't regret it. I didn't regret it. And
I didn't either.
And
I love you.
And and I was that person that didn't need anybody else's help, because I was, going to go through the world on my own, because I could not.
Yep. I know what's wrong with me. I know it. Why is my brain not working?
I just won't think about it, and that'll give my brain a bit of time to get back online. No. So just find that little bit of courage, whether or not that's just what it is, the courage to try something new, the courage to be open and vulnerable, to share, to let people in, and the courage to know that life changes, and to go with that flow. Like, that's what I'm learning. And that was something, again, with the program, just learning to sit in that flow. Yeah. And when you're there, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it is. It is so nice when you're in flow. Yeah. That's so beautiful. I think there were some key things, like, one, trust your gut, trust your intuition. It's like, if you're being pulled to something, then, and I'm not just talking about our program, it could be anything in life where it's like, oh, this resonates and this feels good, but then there'll always be the other part that's like, no, it's not going to work, and it's too hard, or you don't have enough time, or you don't have enough money. But, like, being able to recognize when you're being pulled, and then courage. It's like courage to step into that. And then actually, I think the next step is kindness. It's like courage to take the step, that leap of faith, but then kindness that, like, you do deserve to be well.
Yeah. Be
Yeah.
kind to yourself. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, and that's probably what I do. Yeah. I speak to myself now. Like, I just go, good job, Joey. We did this today.
You're
And
awesome. I love
yeah,
you. You're great.
like, we went for a walk today and we cried. And how cool is that? Because we're releasing stuff and it's okay. There doesn't need to be anything bad or wrong. You just have created a space where I'm able to do that. And, so my body thanks me now for, so I feel like this brain and this little, gut of mine have got this really beautiful relationship now. And rather than fighting against each other, they're happily skipping along in life.
Yeah. Keeping you on track, keeping you in alignment.
They are.
So beautiful. Thank you so much for so generously, vulnerably, openly sharing your story. We chatted before we pressed record as well. It's like this is kind of like a full circle moment of there was a period of time where I couldn't share my voice, and actually now I can. I love myself. I trust myself. I'm confident in myself, and it's also safe. Like it's safe to share your voice. So I'm so grateful, and I've just loved every minute of working with you as well.
Thank you, Philly. I loved
it.
Thank you, Philly. Thanks so much.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for listening. Send Jo some beautiful virtual love and kisses because she so deserves it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for listening. We so appreciate you. If you'd like to give us extra smiles, drop us a review and spread the love by sharing this episode.
You can also rate your own state of burnout and the root cause contributors by taking our Ending Body Burnout Assessment on our website. And if you're interested in learning about our group or one-on-one Ending Body Burnout programs, shoot us a DM via Instagram or Facebook.
Have the best day ever.